everyone, welcome back to Story of the World chapter highlights. Today we're going to be talking about chapter 11. Now let's jump straight in. So as we can see, the very start of our chapter today was in Australia. Now at this time, Australia was a British colony, if you remember. And mainly Britain at that time put convicts, so people who'd been accused of crimes, was sent to Australia to live there. Now, this happened for quite a long time until the British realized that Australia had a lot of resources. There was a lot of things in Australia. So, for example, as you can see here, we had the gold nugget, if you remember from the chapter. So they found a gold nugget that was the same weight as a man. Now, when Britain realized this, they realized we can make lots of money in Australia. Lots and lots of money, okay? So they decided not to send convicts there anymore. They were like, we can make lots of money from this country. We don't need to send convicts there anymore. This was a problem though. They'd been sending convicts there for a very long time. And there was now descendants of the convicts, so children and grandchildren. And people were a little angry at the British. They were a little mad that now rich British people would start moving to Australia because of all this gold. The descendants of convicts thought, what about us? What will we do? So they started these gangs almost called bushrangers. Now the bush is kind of the jungle in Australia. And these people would wait on the wagons that would pull the gold from the areas where the gold was, and they would basically attack the wagons and try and take the money. So this is who the bushrangers were. Now, the most famous bushranger, which is basically like a bandit, okay? The most famous one is this guy here, Ned Kelly. I tried to draw him just like he looks like. He kind of looks quite like this. So Ned Kelly is the most famous of the bushrangers. Ned Kelly had quite a troubled life. He had a father who was a convict and had spent a lot of time in prison. His mom had lots of children, so it was very hard to pay attention to all the children. So Ned was frustrated. And when he started seeing all these rich British people coming to Australia, he started to get a little mad. And he thought, I'm going to join in with the bushrangers. I'm going to see what they can do. Unfortunately for Ned, the police weren't happy about this and started accusing him and his family, so his brother Dan and his mum Ellen, of crimes they hadn't committed. This started to make Ned even more angry. He was accused of murder that he hadn't committed. So him and his brother, Ned and Dan, ended up fighting with the police. And this time Ned did kill 3 police officers, which was terrible. So Ned and his brother Dan ended up kind of storming a hotel and taking the hotel hostage. And they thought, we're going to fight from here. We have to fight for Australia. We have to fight for our people. And they decided, okay, there's a railroad track running near the hotel. We're going to put some dynamite under it and blow it up. It's going to cause lots of problems. Also, Ned was a very smart man. He knew the police would come with guns. He knew there would be a lot of problems. So he created himself a special armor. And this armor was to keep him safe when the police came. And he gave all the other bandits who were with him the same armor. And we called this the iron armor. It was made out of iron. And it was kind of a very thick and big armor, just like this. A little bit like a knight from England a very long time ago. Same kind of armor. So Ned and his bandit friends and his brother, they fought and fought and fought and fought until eventually the police killed everyone apart from Ned. Unfortunately for Ned, he'd forgotten about his legs. He'd forgotten to cover his legs, which meant when the police were shooting, the armor protected him, but his legs ended up getting shot. Then, unfortunately for Ned, he was caught by the police and sentenced to death. And that is the story of Ned Kelly and the iron armor. Okay, so let's go on to the second part. So the second part was talking about another area of the world. So it's talking about Africa. this time. Now, Africa at this time was seen by Europe as quite a outlandish and, wild place. And that, people didn't have much interest in it. That was until an explorer started to travel down the Nile River, okay, so the longest river in the world. And they started to notice Africa has many resources. There's lots of diamonds and gold and many other things that you can make things with and make lots of money with. So when people found this out, Africa became a lot more interesting to them. Especially this guy here, King Leopold II. King Leopold II was the king of Belgium, and he had dreams. He wanted to make Belgium bigger. He wanted more. He wanted to expand his lands and make more money. So when he heard about Africa and how affluent and how many gems and all these things there was, he really wanted to go to Africa and expand Belgium. So that's what he did. He went to Africa and he went, okay, I want this place and this place and this place and this place. But unfortunately, when he went back to Belgium and talked to the Belgian parliament, they thought, no, you can't just go there and take that land. We don't want that. So King Leopold thought, what can I do to fix this issue? And he made an association. It was called the International African Association. And he promised that this association would bring new science and trade to Africa. Because, like I said before, a lot of people in Europe saw Africa as this wild place. So he was making a promise to bring more science and trade and modernize Africa. Unfortunately, King Leopold hadn't really changed his plans. So even though he said science and trade, he was still thinking about taking the land. That was his main thing he thought about. So he sent this explorer, Henry Stanley, to map trade routes in Africa. So he wanted to see where trade could flow, the trade routes, okay? And that's what he did. Henry Stanley went to Africa and he mapped out these trade routes. As soon as he did that, King Leopold went, wherever we have built trade routes, that is Belgian land. That is our land if it is unclaimed. Now, this was a problem. There was many other countries who had become interested in Africa because of all the diamonds and gold and all the resources. There was Germany and Great Britain and France and Portugal. And they all wanted to start taking more and more of this land. So they all started fighting over it, essentially. And this was called the Scramble. It was a scramble, a race to try and get more and more of this land. But this was a problem because there was no clear lines of where borders were, and it caused a lot of issues. Also, there was tribes in Africa at this time, the original people in Africa, who were kind of left out and being pushed from their homes and having their land taken, similar to what had happened in the United States. Now, eventually, Germany stood up and said, we can't continue to do this anymore. This is a problem. We're all fighting over this land, but we need more clear rules of what we will do. So Germany invited all the other countries to the Berlin Conference, which took place in Berlin in Germany. And they made two rules, really. First rule was, let's not fight with each other. Europe had been through many, many wars, and they didn't want any more. So they said, let's not fight. And the second thing they said was, if you built a trade post or a missionary station on the land, that was yours to claim. And that was how Africa started to be divided and colonized by European powers. All right, well done, everyone. Good luck and have a great week. Bye-bye.